Welcome back to Inside Games, the only gaming news show brave enough to report that the future of gaming is finally here, and it turns out the future doesn't have to give you your money back.
Yes, that's right. Another cloud game has gone to that great server farm in the sky, leaving everyone who bought it, I guess, with keys to a door that doesn't open anymore. So what's going on here? Brian, tell us what's going on with Aliens Fireteam Elite.
Oh boy, it's not great. So Fireteam Elite on the Switch has had its cloud server shut down, leaving owners unable to play the co-op survival game. And according to IGN, in true Nintendo fashion, nobody gets a refund at all.
That you don't get a refund, and you don't get a refund. The shutdown wasn't exactly a surprise for this game. Players were warned earlier this year that the servers would eventually close, but the timing has given the situation some extra attention, particularly following Sony's recent announcement that it plans to end disc production for new PS5 games starting in January of 2028.
Yeah, everybody's kind of on edge. I can kind of feel it too. And just you're hyper aware now of any game shutting down, especially if you had to pay for it in the first place. On that note, yeah, Fireteam Elite launched on Switch 2023 as a cloud-based game. It sold for $29.99 with an Ultimate Edition priced at $59.99.
It's a fucking 3-year-old game that's already dead. 3 years.
Yeah.
So needless to say, Switch owners are in an awkward position. Unlike a normal digital game that gets delisted, a cloud game can't simply remain playable after its servers disappear. Even if you've already bought it, access obviously depends on the company continuing to operate the servers.
Yep, like we know, as Reddit user Stunning Original 802 put it, quote, never ever buy a cloud game. You don't own it, and it can be taken away from you at any time, especially 3 years later after you just bought the game.
But don't worry, you can just buy it again. Yes, the situation is especially interesting because Aliens Fireteam Elite 2 is coming soon to the Switch 2.
Yeah, there's currently no word of a discount if you bought it on the Switch, unlike Kingdom Hearts, whose Switch owners could receive a discount when purchasing the games again for the Switch 2. Maybe it's because it's a more obscure game, but still, it fucking sucks.
Yeah, that would be kind of cool if they offered a discount to the people that purchased the first Fireteam Elite that get the second one. Whatever. While the Switch is also moving increasingly towards digital games, Nintendo doesn't appear to be ready to abandon physical media either.
Yeah, weirdly, if there's one bright spot for physical enthusiasts, it is Nintendo. The company recently reported that physical games still account for 38.5% of its software sales, compared with 61.5% for digital downloads. But that ratio is quite a bit higher than any other manufacturer or console platform.
Yeah, I read something recently, like Sony said there were less than 7 games that sold over 100,000 physically. Like it was, pretty low. But of that 38.5% on the Switch, that's down 2.2 percentage points from the previous period, but that is still more than a third of Nintendo's software sales come in a box, which is, I don't know, I think that's still awesome.
I mean, yeah, they're the only company left, and by a large margin. The shutdown of Aliens Fireteam Elite arrives as the gaming industry continues arguing over the future of physical media, and also the consumers are doing a lot of arguing as well.
Because we know where this goes. Sony was recently spotted putting advisory stickers on PlayStation 5 consoles, warning players that physical games will eventually be discontinued. I don't know if that's good enough, though. It ought to be like a verbal thing on the counter. You know, you're not going to be able to use any of this stuff in 4 or 5 years, right? Sheesh.
Hey, this is basically a VHS player. Just FYI, we're not going to make these in 6 months. Nintendo, though, has indicated it is not planning to follow that path, which makes sense if a third of your sales are physical.
For Aliens Fireteam Elite players, though, the argument over physical versus digital ownership isn't exactly theoretical. No, it's not. They bought the game and the server shut down. And now the game is gone. There is basically no way to play it.
Yeah, ideally, all the people who put their $30 on the table for cloud access to Aliens on a Switch were aware of the fleeting nature of that purchase when they did it. I don't know. I think it's acceptable for somebody who wants to play a game on a given platform or whatever to buy it. And then in their heads as they're buying it, I'm not going to play this in 6 months. I don't care. How many movies have I gone to see in the theater? I don't need permanent access to. Not necessarily a one-to-one analog here, but I think there is a world where somebody can knowingly spend $30 on 3 years of access to a game and be okay with that. But it sucks. It sucks and it shouldn't be normalized, and I don't want it to happen. I'm just more like, yeah, I can see why a individual consumer might be okay with that trade-off. This is kind of a different topic, but it's a bit of an irony that occurred to me halfway through this story. Nintendo, oddly, in this weird future we found ourselves in, is doing good because of their reliance on physical media versus optical media. There's been some interesting research. Alana Pierce even did a long video about it, about the actual money and the process involved with manufacturing discs and the copy protection that's involved and the companies that have that flow locked down, and how Sony is repurposing their internal production for other things that will make them far more money than making optical drives for what is to them rapidly becoming deprecated hardware. So here's Nintendo. They've always been on the cartridge train. I guess the Wii and whatever, GameCube, bit of a departure, but have long just relied on solid storage in a cartridge format. Used to be way more expensive than discs, and that's why a lot of people swapped over to things like PlayStation, because the mass reproduction of those games were so much cheaper. You could make multiple disc games. A multiple cartridge game would just cost way too much and bite into the margins way too high. Or a higher capacity cartridge. I know Resident Evil 2, the port on the N64 was hard to produce, so. But now that they're just on these cheap, slow thumb drives that you can just slap a sticker on and kick out the door, somehow Nintendo's coming out ahead. And the DRM is still pretty solid. Their digital loan sharing, their game card system, unnecessarily complicated, but it still does provide some amount of sharing and transferring of licenses with physical and digital. So yeah, how did that happen? That out of all the platforms, somehow Nintendo seems like they're kind of more customer friendly. I know a lot of people don't believe that, but it seems to be how it's going.
I also don't blame Nintendo for this. Aliens Fireteam Elite, I blame. And it's one of those things where I don't know that 3 years ago, if they had said, hey, this game is a cloud game only, and in 3 years' time, you won't be able to play it, I'm sure that would have turned off a lot of people. Even just the thought of it getting pulled, you're right, Lawrence. Most people, for example, if they didn't know that it was going to get pulled in 3 years, they're going to buy it, of course, and then play the game for whatever, 6 months, a year, probably, and then be fine with it. And then if they had just, pulled it and no one noticed, everybody would have been like, well, that's weird. But since we are in this environment right now where everyone's really scared about their games getting pulled, then this is a big, really, really bad move. I don't know what the solution is, other than the Stop Killing Games initiative, which is leave the games forever. Because in 10 years' time, no one would bat an eye at this. I could even go out on a limb and say 7 years probably. No one bats an eye at Aliens Fireteam Elite disappearing. But 3 years is really, really soon, and it definitely will give consumers pause about buying the second one too, because that one's gonna get pulled in 3 years too. So I don't know. It's really weird. There was a story also on Reddit about how, because Netflix and all these other streamers have been doing this for a very long time. They'll pull movies you own. I can't remember if it was Google that pulled Lord of the Rings from somebody who they just purchased Lord of the Rings for 4 years ago, and then they just pulled it. And this is the thing that happens all the time on those. And it's going to become more and more prevalent here. I don't know the solution other than let's all buy VHS players.
And sailing particular seas is a solution to some.
I just think of myself as a young BG back 100 years ago, when the only time I got new video games were my birthday and Christmas. And if I had bought a game, saved up my money and bought a game, or asked Santa, and they said you can only play this for 3 years and it'll explode at the end of that, I would say no fucking way. And so I do actually think that Nintendo, the company that started in the 1800s making playing cards, is perfectly positioned for right now. Because physical games are important. It turns out, and I know back in the console war days, everybody made fun of Nintendo of Wii players, and oh, you guys are the kids, and only real gamers play Xbox Live. But guess what? The Nintendo weebs may have saved us all by showing that people still buy physical games, that they're important, and that they preserve games in a way, and yeah, you don't really own as much as you think you did, but I still think I think this is going to really show how important physical games are going forwards. This is the canary in the coal mine. Yeah, Fireteam Elite is kind of an obscure game, but it's gonna matter a lot when a Call of Duty game goes away or something like that. You're gonna flip out, and I don't know. I think this sucks. I think people need to vote with their wallets, and maybe if you haven't bought a physical game in a long time, buy one to prove a point. Is all I can think, because companies notice that shit.
Yeah, as usual, vote with your wallet. I think the sobering side of that is that when people do or don't, then you kind of have to accept where things go after that. And I think that's the part that is the hardest to swallow, especially for folks that do like legacy media and really hate the idea of, yes, the one game that they're really excited about and always want to go back to just disappearing. That's our thoughts. That's our beliefs. That's our soul. They take a chunk of it every time, those bastards. Well, thank you very much for watching Inside Games. Hopefully we didn't take a chunk of your soul with this episode. And as far as we know, barring anything else, this episode will still be here a few years from now. Lord knows the episodes we did 3 years ago were still here, and I'm sure with their immaculately correct takes intact. And I'm going to say it, that makes this show a better investment than a cloud game. If you'd put $30 behind Inside Games, you'd still be enjoying the results of that. So if you feel like supporting the bravest gamers around, do check out our Patreon. Everything is free there, so it's not like just loads and loads of please give us money. We just put it all up. But we also even give you spicy memes, a little bonus for anyone that checks out the Patreon. A bonus meme for every episode. That's our promise here. But we would like to shout out the patrons that make the wisest investment on the internet. Thank you very much. Jose Diaz, Ryan Derryberry, Chilled Monkey Brains, J. Rally Ark, and Bren Fulton. We promise we're not taking that money right to Roblox.